Well, welcome everybody to Happy Hour this evening. I'm absolutely fired up to have Adam Niemeyer from University of Cincinnati here. And for those of you who don't know, we've actually been Facebook pen pals, it feels like, for a long time. So I'm really fired up to put a face to the name. For today, it's going to be more of a guided conversation than anything. I think this is just my opinion. Adam is one of the most underrepresented voices we have in our industry, but hopefully you'll find out throughout the course of this our talk is that he's going to be one of the most integral moving forward. And you know what, this is again my opinion, he should have been already a prominent voice in the industry. So I'm fired up to have you here. I'm going to go through a little bit of your bio and then you can go into a little bit more detail after I'm done.
All right.
He wanted me to preface that he's an avid NASCAR enthusiast. He's a lifelong Cincinnati resident, and more specifically a West Sider. He's been at Cincy his whole career. He's won the AAC Video Coordinator of the Year 2 times now, 2017 and 2019. He's the AAC CSVA rep, and currently he's the National Video Co-op Secretary. Okay, so before we get really started and delve right into the questions, you're more than welcome to delve into your background and experience as much as possible, okay? Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, so I was told it's happy hour, so I brought beer. It's probably
if my head coach wasn't right across the room, I would have mine. But I plan to have mine. Yeah.
Yeah, so really started back in high school with me, and there was just an announcement, I think my sophomore year in high school. Our high school won 2 straight state championships, and I was like, gee, I'd love to help out. I've never played a down of competitive football in my life. And if you've ever seen me, you would know why, because I'm stick thin, so I would get murdered. But the idea of working around sports in some way always kind of appealed to me. So I ended up helping out my high school for 3 years. I did stats on game day. I was kind of like a GA, but not quite, in the sense that we all know GAs. I did, like I said, game day stats, and we did everything back then on paper. So for the scout team, I was the guy holding up the cards, and I'd say, okay, we're running the top play. That was literally like the only thing I did. Our coaches would write things out. Hey, this is the play, and I would just hold the thing up. Just kind of did odd jobs for the coaches, ran copies and stuff like that. Our trainer at the time knew somebody at UC, is actually our director of football operations and still is. So that's how I got hooked up here. Showed up in June around this time of 2007, and I've been there ever since. I keep telling people I just show up. They keep paying me. Nobody's told me to leave. So as long as that keeps going, I'm going to keep showing up.
Awesome. Yeah, a good rule to follow by is if your key card still works to get into the facility, right? So yep. Now, before we really delve into a set of questions that I just had for you, I have a little video, and this. Your local city news outlet did an awesome piece on your video department. So I'm going to go ahead and share that now.
We know UC's football team has spent all week preparing to play Ohio State. That preparation doesn't come on the football.
Jimmy, we can't hear the video.
It might be because you muted yourself.
Yeah, I think when you muted yourself, it cut out the video audio.
We know UC's football team has spent all week preparing to play Ohio State. That preparation doesn't come on the football field alone. Instead, it can also be seen in the video room. 9 on Your Side's Jake Ryle followed around the video coordinator crew as they prepare for the Buckeyes.
How do you prepare for the biggest football game of the season for UC football? It all starts with every play, every down captured on video. For Sean McMahon,
Get my own Wired segment.
Hell yeah, dog.
the second-year UC student
Marker.
knows his job.
I'm end zone tight.
The guy behind the camera isn't shooting highlights.
To have something to teach the players off of, so they can go back and they can watch our film, they can learn from their mistakes.
Every play, every practice, every game recorded on a card.
All right, going to punt.
Which then goes into the hands
You guys good out there?
of video coordinator Adam Niemeyer.
It's really behind the scenes that not a lot of people know about it.
But this crew of 9 plays a big role.
They coach off of this. So what I have to tell my students is if you don't film it, our coaches can't grade off of it. So if we make mistakes, how can we get better if we don't film it?
Each play is then broken down
What I usually do is I print offense and defense back to back.
by the sideline, showing all 22 players on the field at all times.
Coaches can see what the safeties do on the back end. They can read coverages. They can see all the wide receivers run down the field and get various routes.
And the end zone shot McMahon is grabbing.
Get everyone on the defensive line. So DN to DN.
You can see our offensive line pushing away from the ball, and they can see the various holes open up. Our running backs coach loves it.
That footage is uploaded on a system called Exos, and each clip is assigned data points.
Our young coaches, our defensive GAs and offensive GAs were in here within an hour breaking it down, putting the down and distance data in, putting the routes and the concepts and all that stuff in that they needed so that our coaches, when they came in Sunday morning, were ready to go. They knew exactly what Ohio State did on every play against FAU.
Second down, third down, goal line situations all can be brought up with the click of a mouse.
It's amazing what these guys can find from our footage. Even when I get to sit in special teams meetings and Coach Fickle goes over certain things and he says, watch this, and I look at it and go, oh, I didn't even know that you could see that on our footage, but they can see the way a guy's foot points, if that means, you know, the difference between he's rushing on a punt or he's holding you up and trying to block it.
30 minutes after practice is at their fingertips.
Every player can log onto his iPad. He's got an individualized account. He can watch every rep that he took that day on his iPad.
The video team's focus is on perfection.
We can't win football games at our job, but we can sure as heck lose them if we don't do what we need to do the right way and quickly and efficiently. So if we miss a play during practice, we can't say, hey guys, can you go back and do that again? We missed it, it doesn't exist. And that could be the difference on a game day between winning and losing.
Knowing sometimes mistakes happen, plays get missed.
You ever miss a play? Yeah, it's happened. Yeah, especially when I was new, it happened a lot.
The focus this week on a fast-paced Ohio State offense.
I'm on 164 here.
These guys know what they're doing. Niemeyer won the American Athletic Conference's Video Coordinator of the Year award in 2017. But when it comes down to it, this week is a new opportunity with the same goal.
There's going to be 22 guys on the football field at the beginning of this game. It's no different than last week when we played UCLA and the next week when we play Miami, Ohio. It's just we know a lot of other people on the other side of the ball, and it's a bigger game in a bigger stadium.
At Nippert Stadium.
Is my focus on manual?
Jake Ryle, 9 Sports.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Now, I don't know what you're thinking of when you look back at that story, but I thought it was a really concise report on what we actually do. So I don't know if you had any initial thoughts before I get into the questions.
Yeah, so the funniest part about that is I did an internship at that TV station in 2009. I have a journalism degree. So did an internship at that TV station. The guy that led off, the sports reporter behind the desk, just recently retired, local legend, learned a lot from those guys. The guy who did the story not only was the intern the year after I was at WCPO, he did this for a year at Western Kentucky. I think Chris Zaccaro was the video coordinator down there at the time. So he and I had this connection that, you know, we'd see one another at local sporting events and stuff when we were both interns at other TV stations, and we both had the same job as undergrads. So Jake knew what we did before he came in, which is so rare. There's very few other reporters out there that understand what we do. Ryan McGee at ESPN's another one. He's kind of an idol of mine, I guess. He did this at Tennessee in the early 90s, and now he reports on NASCAR. So he understands the job. You know, there's some reporters that are out there that just don't understand what we do. And I wouldn't have let just anybody come in and kind of tell our story. But I think Jake having that knowledge and knowing how we did it, knowing what we did, really helped him tell our story a little bit better. So that was pretty cool. When he called me that week and said, "Hey, I want to come in and do a story on you guys," I said, "Absolutely, you're the guy for it." Even though I do some freelance stuff for another TV station in town, they didn't have the pregame show that week. Channel 9 did. So he came in and actually talked to me in February, right after I got named for Video Coordinator of the Year. Just a simple soundbite. Same thing. You know, he said, "Hey, I want to come in and put you on the news." And I was like, "I really don't need to be on the news for this, but if you're going to put me out there, sure."
Well, I think that your sentiment on him understanding exactly what we do, you're completely right. It's super rare. And even sometimes the people that end up hiring us, don't completely understand what we do. So I thought it was just a really well done piece. Now, at the very beginning of that piece, there's something that was kind of glossed over, and this can kind of be a loaded question, but who is Joe Stanek?
So when, I said I showed up in June of 2007 at UC, Joe had just completed his first year as an undergraduate student. And we were filming camps or something together. And we did 4 years, 3 or 4 years together as undergrad students at UC. He's now the head video coordinator at Ohio State. That did not get mentioned in the story. And he is not in any of the pictures behind me of my wedding. Oh, wrong hand. Over there. You see his pictures behind me of my wedding. Is actually my family and my wife's family. Joe's over on the wall just over here. I can see him. Ended up becoming, really good friends, and he's at Ohio State now. He's kind of bounced around. He's been at Tennessee, LSU, Minnesota. And I just kind of stuck around here because I like Cincinnati. Joe is has laptop will travel. But he settled in at Ohio State. I think he's been there. This will be his 4th year back as the head video guy there, because he had interned there in 2013. And Coach Niemeyer and the group up there, we obviously have a lot more in common now with that group since we hired Coach Fickle when he came from Ohio State than we did back then. But certainly he's one of the guys that if you think I'm really good at this, I think he's one of those guys. I call him all the time and I'm like, "Hey, how do you do this?" I don't, you guys know how the job works. If you've never done it before, you're like, "I don't know how to do this, but I got people to call. I'll call them. We'll figure it out."
Great. Yeah, I know. I'm trying to help you out a little bit because I know it'd be remiss if we didn't mention him. He would give you all kinds of hell. So
I tried to get him to show up. It didn't work, apparently.
It's okay. He'll catch this on the recording. But now, outside of the job, again, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention this. Your avid passion for NASCAR and how that has kind of affected your life, and in any capacity, whatever you want to tell about your love for that sport. Go ahead.
I considered this is where my laptop's been set up since we've done this whole work from home deal. I considered taking it downstairs in my basement here at the house. I've got a bunch of NASCAR stuff in my basement. I've been probably since I was 3 or 4. I've watched the sport. Again, lifelong Cincinnati resident. So this isn't exactly a hotbed of, NASCAR kind of started in the Southeast, North Carolina, Alabama, all those places down there. And then obviously has grown to be a national sport. And with the things that I've done with our job and getting around cameras and then getting in with local TV stations and racetracks around here, I've been able to do something that if you would have told, 15-year-old me that I had 2 phone calls this week with one, a recently retired NASCAR driver, and one, an active NASCAR driver, Cup champion, for a freelance story I'm doing for Kentucky Speedway. If you would have told me that when I was 15, I'd have laughed. Probably been like, "Well, that's kind of cool," but yeah, no chance that I'm going to be doing that in 15 years. So I use my connections with local TV. I know some NASCAR PR people. I'm like a hybrid. I'm definitely a lifelong fan of the sport, but I still have that ability to put on the media hat. Obviously, I can't this year with all of the restrictions surrounding it. But next weekend, I was planning on driving my car up to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, hanging out in the media center like I do every week. They have a race that I can go to, interviewing drivers, writing as many blogs as I can fit in, and then doing it, if I could, the next weekend at Kentucky. Obviously, I can't because of the restrictions. But Kentucky Speedway, I've got a lot of connections down there. It's about 30, 45 minutes down the road. And they have hired me for a very small sum, but it's at least a check that I get. And I can write a story for their program, which is going out digitally this year. So I still get the opportunity to use my journalism degree, because in this job I say I don't get to use my degree. So I have that opportunity with my blog to do that. And I just, if there was a NASCAR race on right now, I would have it on the TV. I probably wouldn't be looking down at you guys. I'd be, looking up. I did it on Monday. I was at the tail end of a meeting for the national co-op, and I looked up, and I was, the race was getting ready to start at Talladega, and I was like, yeah, can we cut to the chase here? Because I got stuff to watch on TV. So I enjoy it. If you come into my office during the football season on a Sunday, most people probably have NFL games on. I've got one TV for NFL games because I work in a football office, but on my other TV or my laptop, I'm streaming the NASCAR race. And people will come in and be like, why? Just what I do.
Now, you put a pretty natural transition in there when it comes to your blog, and we're going to get you some free pub. I'll put it in the chat. But what was the concept behind the blog, and what, I've obviously ran through it, but could you tell the people that are watching this, what was the concept behind it? What do you talk about on it? And I especially, there's some video related ones that you can touch on. So go ahead.
Yeah. So it started, I've mentioned a couple times, journalism degree. Don't know how worth it is to get a journalism degree in today's world, but that's up to you. In fact, the kid that they had the microphone on that they interviewed in that story is getting a journalism degree. So I look at him all the time. I'm like, I don't know if I'd do that. But he's trying to work for TV stations too, so he's kind of following my route. But it started, I was taking a journalism class. They said, hey, you got to start a blog. And I said, okay. And I was either a freshman or a sophomore. So I came up with that title, and that title stuck. I thought about changing it to something about NASCAR, but I don't want to pigeonhole myself, because there's times where I write about this job. There's times where I just write about random family stuff. Just whatever kind of tickles my fancy. I think back in my later years of undergrad, I had a series of weeks where I just wrote about, these are my top 5 favorite songs right now. Who am I to say that? I'm nobody, but it's a blog. I'm there. I'm going to write it, in and amongst NASCAR opinions, NASCAR news stories, anything I want. So it's probably, depending on the time of the year, 60 to 70% NASCAR, 20 to 30% about this job. I really had a good transition in 2017 when Coach Fickle came down here. My job title kind of changed around. I don't know if we're going to get into that a little bit later on, but I went from having 2 people full-time in the video office, and we did all the highlights and all the social media and all that other stuff. And that got output to somebody else. So my main job was football coaches video. And the first year that Coach Fickle was here in 2017, I had a hair more free time on my hands, not a lot. But you know how you're sitting in the office late at night after practice and you're just kind of babysitting. So I was like, well, screw this. I'm gonna tell people what we do, because nobody really talks about what we do. So I wrote about it. Now, obviously, it's all from my vantage point. So when I talk about, well, we have a semi truck and it leaves on Thursday night before I know most everybody does, but some people don't. I know, Dory, you guys probably didn't have a truck, obviously. But I just kind of write about it, and I don't want it to be the gospel truth of our job. But I just kind of write about, hey, this is what we do. This is how we do it. This is how I do things, and kind of share some ideas there. I post them on Facebook, where I'm friends with a lot of people, obviously. And I don't do it to, just, hey, look at me. But I kind of do it more to promote our job and our role. I think that's important, because that's, the internet, it probably lasts forever. So, if somebody comes 40 or 50 years from now and they say, well, I wonder what video coordinating was like, maybe they can at least tag into my blog posts and at least have an understanding of what we did. That's kind of that side of our job. I like writing about it, but I'm kind of out of topics now. I know if I go into this season, I'm like, all right, what do I write about? I've, in the past 3 years, pretty much said, this is how we do practice. This is how we do games. It's, iPads after games. We fly everywhere on charter flight. Obviously this year heck, who knows what it's going to look like. So maybe that'll provide some things. But the other thing I like to do, and I think we're all guilty of this, and we all should be guilty of this, is, I like to protect, my coaching staff and my players. So there's times where I can say, well, I could tell you exactly how we do things, and I could tell you exactly, but I don't want to give, if we're playing Buffalo, Jimmy, I don't want to give you an advantage. I just, I still like to win. So, yes, we're doing the same job, but obviously I don't want to put out there, we practice punt for 15 minutes a day, and it's very important to us. And when we run our punt, we kick to the right or whatever, like, I don't want to put that out there. I'm not that dumb. So that's kind of one of those things that some of my blogs are a little whitewashed in that way, but you'd have to know behind the scenes that I've taken a little bit of a liberty with that, because I just don't want, I don't want Brad at UCF or Phil at USF or anybody in the American Athletic Conference to read that and go look at their coaches and, it comes back to me. That's obviously a negative.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really critical point that we haven't even touched on too much in doing these webinars, is that you're always still under the umbrella of the head coach in the program. And in your own way, whether it's through digital media or just through coach's video, you're protecting the program and the head coach. That's first and foremost, number one.
Yep. And we've, so back when we used to do some highlights and stuff for our website, GoBearcats.com is our athletic department website. And they have a separate person who did at that time, he's actually now the play-by-play guy for the MLS team here in Cincinnati. But he did all these videos, and there was one early on in Coach Tuberville's regime where you could hear our punt cadence. And he posted it because nobody checked him. He just posted it online. Hey, here's a video that we did from our training camp. And I was like, do you really think that's I texted him and I said, I just watched your video. Do you really think that's a good idea? And he goes, oh, it doesn't matter. And I was like, whoo. The guys I work for, if they see that, are going to lose their absolute minds. Was not the word I used, but I said they're going to lose their absolute minds if they see this and hear this. You can't, you got to kind of play PR on our side of the fence where you just can't, put anything out. And I think you're right. And you can't take pictures of injuries and videos of, you got to be careful with what you put out publicly, which is a difficult thing about sitting in the seat that we sit in and managing students and telling them, hey, look, I know this thing has a camera on it, and, just if you see something happen at practice, don't say anything to anybody. It's hard, it really is, because I don't know how to control an 18-year-old because I'm barely older than them myself. So you just got to trust that they're smart enough to realize that, and everybody's going to make a mistake. I made mistakes when I was younger. I probably put some stuff out on Twitter and stuff that I, would regret. But, I think as long as you're smart about things and you tell your students, hey, don't post this on Instagram. Don't, they're smart enough to understand, at least my students are getting paid with a scholarship. They're smart enough to understand I have you, I have the purse strings here, and I can, tell you you're not getting paid as much. And if you have to explain that to your parents or whoever's helping you pay your tuition, that's on you. So I think we just, you're right. We have to be smart about the way we do things, because for most of us in most athletic departments, we do fall under the reign of the head coach. And you just got to know that. And like I said, I worked in high school for 3 years with my coaching staff. So I kind of learned there a little bit of something. And, that's where I learned football coaches are paranoid, was in high school. We practiced at a practice field. Our field was grass at the high school. It hadn't been turfed yet. And so we drove a mile away to a local park. And there was an apartment building. I laugh about this now because I'm like, this is ridiculous. There's an apartment complex that's over the parking lot of where we practiced. And one time we were running a fake punt, and one of our coaches was like, is there anybody standing out on any of those balconies? And I'm thinking, why? We were playing our biggest rival that week. So, even though they're across town, and I'm like, that seems really, really ass backwards. But now that I work around college football coaches, I completely understand it. That story that you played earlier from from that TV station, I told them that week our coaches were on edge. You know, we're playing Ohio State. It's a big game. Obviously, Coach Fickle going back to his alma mater, a place that he was, you know, pretty much the only place he coached. It was a big deal. And I was like, all right, we've got to really be careful with what we do and what we show. And so that's where it helped to have Jake there. He understood, you know, he could tell his photographer, all right, only film the guys with the cameras. Please don't shoot. Please don't shoot it at the field. And our SID was even like, can you control them? Because I got to control all these other people. So, you know, that goes back to the trust factor I had with Jake telling that story, which was really good.
Now, to delve into a little bit further, where we're getting into now to the nitty gritty about your philosophy when it comes to video. I know we share this philosophy. We've had numerous conversations on student assistants and training them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that you and I, we're pretty hard on them, especially at the start. Now, you know, it's borderline being an asshole. And then, you know, we share this in that it's better to be an asshole and get it perfect and then wean down than be too nice and then try to ramp it up, because then you become almost Mr. Jekyll, you know, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, you know. So if you can touch on that a little bit.
So one of the most challenging things for me is for 2 to 3 weeks during fall training camp, we go off site to a place about 45-minute drive away from campus, just inside the state line of the state of Indiana. We've been going there for 25 or so years now. It's a little religious retreat center. We've basically built it into what it is now. Basically a football field and almost 2 whole football fields turfed out there. Just got the turf redone a couple years ago. Well, it's so spread out there that I can't have a server at all. I have to do portable organizer. I feel like I'm a portable organizer expert. So when people go to bowl games and they're posting on Facebook and they're talking about portable organizers, I just laugh. I'm like, that's me for 3 weeks every year. You know, don't bitch about having to do it for 3 days at a bowl site. It'll work out. So, you know, I've learned different ways to do things. Obviously, when we started in 2007, Joe and I were running VHS tapes around. We had to drop them off at Brian Kelly's door, you know, and he had a VCR in his office. We took 30 VCRs with us the first year to Camp Higher Ground. It was ridiculous. And now it's obviously a lot easier, but with portable organizers, they're really finicky. So it's hard for me to look at a student and say, look, I understand shit happens, to borrow that phrase. Occasionally you'll miss a play, but if you do it on campus, it's way easier for me to fix. I can pull up sideline on my computer. I can pull up, you know, have one of my students pull up end zone on the other computer. We can look through, okay, we missed play 3. All right, we can either insert the other end zone or dead clip, whatever. At Higher Ground, we have to cut practice twice. I have 2 laptops out there, one for offense and one for defense, with special teams on both. So, you know, with the amount of stuff we shoot, sometimes I think it's a little bit too much. I hope my coaches don't see this, but I mean, we probably shoot more than we need to, and we toss it all on their laptops and those portable organizers. I've done it with a way where you just plug the hard drive in and it lives on the hard drive. I've done it where you plug the hard drive in and transfer it in. I still don't know which way is better. You know, it all depends on who your coach is and your coaching staff. But when it comes down to teaching these guys, you know, it's hard, I guess, without firsthand experience to know, because I didn't know when I showed up. You know, I guess I was hitting record late a couple times, and my boss at the time was John Sells. If anybody knows and remembers John was in the MAC a bunch and bounced around, ended his career at Purdue after he was here. He was, I don't want to say John was an asshole because I like him, but yeah, he was kind of tough on us. And you can ask Joe the same thing. Joe will tell you the same thing. That, you know, we learned that from him early on. If you don't record it, it's not there. And then, you know, the guy that took over for John when John left and went to Purdue is Greg Bruner, who was at Illinois for a while. Started at UC, went to Illinois, came back. He now works as an admin, an upper admin in equipment for us. And he said, I can't shit out film. I can cut it down and trim it down. I can't shit out film. That was a great line that I stole from Greg. So I you know, I try to tell kids that all the time. Look, I can't make it appear, but we can sure as heck trim it down. So that's kind of how I live with that. And I know that perfection's impossible, but I like to have that. And I know you put that on the image that, you know, perfection is the standard, because for our job, unfortunately, it is. And my sister-in-law works in she's an ICU nurse. So I want to have perspective on this, where it's like, you know, she's actually saving lives and her job's like super stressful and important. And, you know, there's a job where perfection is really a key thing. But so is our job, which, you know, I don't want to compare us to those people that are out literally saving lives, because we get paid to watch football. So, but having that same kind of stress of that's hard on an 18-year-old kid too. You and I sit there and tell these kids, hey, don't miss a play. Goodness only knows what's going on in their lives, that, you know, that distractions, whatever. It's a big challenge, because I started for 4 years. I was an undergrad, did 2 years as a graduate assistant, took over as a full-time assistant for 1 year, and then I got promoted to video coordinator. Nobody taught me how to be the boss, I guess, is the best way to put it. And that's been my biggest challenge for the past 6 or 7 years, is I've just kind of grown into it. We kind of blame our university for this, but there's no like leadership training available for us. So you just got to kind of figure it out as you go, which really sucks, because there's people like us that are hungry enough to say, hey, can somebody help me out? That's why I think CSVA is a really, really good, you know, annual conference to go to, or, you know, if you have the chance to go to the Exos one in Vegas, where you have that ability to interact with people. I see Scott Eilert here on the call, who have been doing this for a really long time, and you can bounce those questions off of them, or, you know, you can call people, or, you know, send them a Facebook message, however you connect with these older people. You know, I keep saying I've been doing this for 13 years, but I've really only been the head guy for like 6. So yes, I've been around for a little while, but I haven't been in charge. So yeah, I'm still leaning on, you know, the people who have been video coordinators since I started, and you call them if you ever need anything, or you bounce ideas off of them, because they've been in your shoes, and they understand how good, you know. And I gave you those names, Jimmy, when you called me a couple weeks ago. Hey, you know, Doug at LSU and DJ at Texas, and, you know, all these people. I've interacted with Ken Norris a couple times, who played UCLA, and he's been around a while. All these guys that have been doing this for a really long time are people that, and you had the call a couple days ago, the people who've been in it 20 years. You know, not only do they have really good stories, they also have the ability to help those of us that are a little bit younger out, so that we can in turn help the next group coming up, and, you know, just kind of a pass down thing.
And I think you're completely right that, you know, we always have to pay adage to them as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Scott, again, you're on the call, and Dory, for example.
Yep.
Thank you for everything that you've done, seriously, because I couldn't have done what you guys did 20 years ago, for sure. Even you saying a VHS tape, like, that scares the living hell out of me.
Suck
I
up.
can't do anything.
Now, when it comes to the industry, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I asked you this in the little questionnaire I sent you. This is just my opinion, and you can add yours, but we're moving into a different state when it comes to being a video coordinator. We're being stretched further than ever possible, whether it's being in the digital age, or now you have to almost have 2 expertise, you know, whether it's graphic design, most likely it's post-production, but the way of just being people almost like us is less and less going by the wayside. So I just want you to give a little bit of your thoughts of what it may be like to be a video coordinator potentially 5-10 years down the road now.
So this goes back to my blog, and one of the guys that I work for at one of the TV station, I still kind of help out with NASCAR stuff, and they give me all my media passes. And one of the producers that was there, he now works for Fox Sports local, Fox Sports Ohio, and actually does some work on our coaches show. He always told me, like, I was so multi-talented when it came to, you know, I own a camera, I can take pictures. I know how to interview people on camera with video. I can write. You know, when you have all those tools, he's like, you can make it. And I was like, well, here's the thing. This was my opinion 5 or 6 years ago. I'd argue with him. I'd say, Rufus, here's the deal. The people that take pictures at NASCAR races only take pictures, and they're really, really good at it. The people that do video at NASCAR races only do video. The people that write only write. Yes, it's great that I can do all those, but I'm not really, really good at one. I'm just good enough at all of them. And I kind of felt like that at the time translated into what I was doing. I can go back and watch some of the highlight tapes I made in 2011. First off, I'm glad I don't do them anymore, because if you've seen any of our content, that the person we hired to do all our post-production is really, really talented. She is awesome. And I'm thankful, because I used to joke, I was like, I look like a kindergartner next to the stuff she's putting out. So I'm really glad that, we hired her to do that. A, because it's off my plate, and B, because she's really damn good at it. She really is. So yeah, you kind of had to know a little bit of everything. Yeah, I could do highlight tapes. I could toss things in a Premiere timeline, make cool cuts, do things with, music and such. I dipped a toe into the social media pool, but that's kind of not my thing, because as much as these things are great, if you do this your entire life, I feel like you just miss out on a lot. And I know a lot of people that work in social media, and that's their thing, and they love it. And, hats off to them, but I can hear some of them, I used to have a guy that worked with me. He's now at Louisville, and, we've texted him the past couple of days, and I can just, there's times where you can tell he's like, oh, I can't stand looking at my phone anymore. The jack of all trades thing is really good. And I didn't get a chance to watch the smaller school guys talk, but, when you're at a littler school, even at our level, MAC and American Athletic Conference, where the more you can diversify and be good enough at those things, it kind of helps you. I like the fact that right now I'm just specialized in coaches video and I don't have to do highlights. If I ever had to go back to doing highlights, I'd probably find a student that's in, and I used to have a couple that were in electronic media that were really good at that stuff, and I'd make them do it all. I don't know how to use Photoshop. I mean, I can crop and erase thing. I mean, I can do limited stuff in Photoshop. And I know that's a weakness of mine, but I know if that's a reason somebody's going to try to move me to a different job or fire me, then I probably don't want to work for that person anyway. I think the biggest negative, if I could go back and do it all over again, I don't have any IT experience, none. It's all been learned. I've got a student that used to work for me. He's getting ready to graduate, so he won't work for me this year, who is an IT major. And there were times where I'd just say, Justin, get in here. I need to ask you about this, or I need to ask you about this switch. And he would start explaining things. I'm like, dumb it down. My IT knowledge is just enough to get by. We don't work as much with VHS tapes anymore, obviously. I can plug in a VHS recorder and I can do that. That's fine. But we work so much with digital files now that you almost have to be more of an IT guy than a computer guy. So having a relationship of some kind or a background in IT in the next 5 to 10 years may be better than being a video guy, I guess. But I still think you need to know something about cameras. And I'll be honest, I showed up, you're gonna laugh. The first day I showed up to film a high school camp at the University of Cincinnati, they gave me one of those big cameras with the big batteries in the back. I mean, we use the little things now. So, and it had the bars on, and I looked into the eyepiece and I'm looking down, and it had bars. And I looked at one of the guys who'd been doing it for 4 or 5 years as a student, and I said, I can't see anything. What's wrong with this computer? And he just starts, like you did, he just starts laughing. He's like, oh, you just click this button here. And I was like, oh, really? I felt like such a dumbass, but at the same time, I had never really touched a video camera before I showed up in, June, July of 2007 at the University of Cincinnati. I hadn't. So I'm living proof that, you can teach anybody how to do this. And I think Joe is the same way, honestly. I'll say that, we are now at the 2 biggest schools in the state of Ohio as the video guys. So you just kind of learn as you go, but it would, and I don't know how to, because we're all different. there's some people that work for the athletic department, and then there's like a video thing, and there's some, most of us work for the coaching staff, and there's just, I do liken it to NASCAR. Sometimes people call me for my conference because I'm the CSBA rep and in the co-op, and they'll call me and complain about something. They'll say, well, how come our rule says we have to post the game within 6 hours when it's, I'll say, I don't, that's the way that's the rule, whatever, we can change it if you want. But all of us have our own interests at heart because our head coaches have their own interests at heart. And, obviously most of us want to win as much as we can. So when, this is a great local example, Kentucky Speedway had some issues with their track surface, and drivers were like, we really like the track the way it is. Don't repave it. But the Speedway had to repave because anytime it rained, you lost all on track. So the water's seeping up. It's a deal. I don't want to get too deep into it, but they had to repave the racetrack. But, drivers wanted one thing. Anytime NASCAR makes a rule change, drivers want one thing, owners want one thing. They want to save money. Fans want another thing. As a fan of NASCAR, I want to see tight racing, side by side, all this stuff. The drivers want to be the fastest. The owners don't want to spend money on new parts. So it's kind of like that with us. Here's what I think, we should do this. Scott thinks something different. You think something different, but we've all got to somebody's got to make a decision for us on rules of some kind, whatever it is. Hey, we're all going to trade on the Exos platform this year. Great. That's been voted on. You and I may not agree on that, but that's kind of where we're at. So it's similar in that way to NASCAR, where there's a lot of, everybody's got their own opinions, but somebody makes a call, somebody makes a decision, and that's what we roll with. And it's very similar. There's 30-ish Division I teams, and each of us have our own opinions or ideas or whatever. And at some point, we all kind of gotta go the same way. So that's, in the next 5 to 10 years, is a big thing that I didn't know when I started. What, I thought, if we're coming to play Buffalo, I'll say hi to you, we're doing the same thing, but I want to beat you. That's kind of the way I was brought up in this. But now, like, when I go to games, I hang out with other guys in our conference, and it's like, hey, if we win, great. If you guys win, great. We're all doing the same job. I'm here to help you. You're here to help me. I don't like to lose still, obviously, but it's a lot more fun to hang out with guys now that it's not really like, once I've kind of seen how it all works, and if I need something, I can call Scott Eilert and he'll help me out. Kind of a thing where I didn't know it was that way when I came into this, because nobody taught me it was that way. And the more we can educate the younger guys and girls that are getting into this to say, hey, if you ever need anything, just call somebody else. They will help you out. And if they don't, at least find out why they didn't help you out, so you don't automatically write them off as, an absolute asshole, whether or not you think that's true or whatever. Sometimes people just can't help other people out. So that's, the IT thing is huge. And for me, again, if I could go back and know what I know now in 2014, when I took over as the head video coordinator, to know that there's that collegiality, I guess. And brotherhood's not the right word, because obviously we've got women in our sport, but that kind of camaraderie is the word I was looking for. That's huge. And the more we can get to that point where we can help one another out, I think the better we'll be as an industry.
No, all those sentiments are incredible. And, I try to lead this conversation to kind of end it on what was most meaningful for you about the industry and about doing what we do. And I love the answer. So I just want you to go into a little bit of your student tree and what makes everything all worth it to you. And I thought it was a great answer. And I apologize for not just being here for 2 seconds. My coach is flagging me down right now. So just go ahead and start talking.
I don't remember what I typed. So let me pull it up. He had me type out answers to this.
when you're starting to move on to the next level, etc., and move on in life.
Got it.
All right, I'll be right back.
Well, I wish I could find what I told Jimmy. I can't find it on my laptop. For me, I guess, well, as this job in general, the coolest thing that, oh, great, you've got the answers up. Got it. Okay, now I remember what I said. Okay, good. Well, I put on there that the 2009 season we went undefeated. Anybody remembers the Texas-Nebraska Big 12 championship game? We were 1 second away from potentially playing in the national championship game at the University of Cincinnati, which is just unheard of. Growing up in Cincinnati, living here my entire life, never, ever would have thought. I mean, UC football was a joke. It was what people, they were forced to buy football season tickets to buy the basketball season tickets when Bob Huggins was here, and it was a big deal. So that 2009 season was just so much fun. We had so much fun just, going out there. I'd have to have Joe tell some of the more fun stories on road trips because I didn't get out of the hotel too often and have a ton of fun. But that season was fun. I've been to Hawaii twice. I know I came out and saw Dory for the bowl game in 2015. And I tell people that, when they talk about what's your favorite part of the job, I've been to Hawaii twice and I didn't pay a damn dime for it. So you get these cool life experiences, and I try to pitch students on that too. When, I don't know if I want to join and work with you. And I've been to Hawaii twice and I didn't pay a dime for it. So for me, I don't have a lot of students that want to do this. A couple of years ago, I had 3 actually. 2 of them went on. Well, that's not true. I had 4 total students. 3 of them went on to work for the Bengals in like a 1-year internship. One of those 3 now works at Exos. If you call the Exos call center and ever get Tyler, he used to work for me. And sometimes he calls me and he's like, I talked to this guy today and, they really respect you. And I'm like, I don't know why. I'm just a video guy. He works at Exos now. I had 2 other guys that went on to work for the Bengals for a year. And then I had a 3rd guy who did an internship his senior year out at Fox Studios in LA. And he really wants to get into movies, was an electronic media major. And so after that summer, he comes back, he works for me, graduates, ends up jumping on the LA Rams video internship last season. And he's still out working for the Rams. He's moved out of coach's video now, and he's into what I think he wants to do. I don't know if he wants to do it for an NFL team, but they're paying him. So he's doing post-pro stuff for them, making highlight tapes for their website, and did some of the draft coverage. So seeing those guys that are kind of in the industry, kind of not, is cool. But last week or 2 weeks ago when I was filling out the sheet for Jimmy that he had some questions, one of my former students just announced a couple weeks ago him and his wife are having a baby, which made me feel old. And they were supposed to get married on Mother's Day weekend, the virus and all that stuff. Ended up getting married a couple weekends ago. So married, they're having kids. One of the guys that used to work with me works at the high school that we all went to. I end up recruiting a lot of kids out of the high school I went to because the coaches know I work there, and they'll push kids to me. He works there in admissions. There's another guy that used to work for me that lives in Lexington, Kentucky, and he takes pictures at minor league baseball games. Some of his stuff and some country concerts. So, and he just got engaged at Christmas. So these, I say kids, which isn't fair because some of them are only 5 years younger than me. But these students that work for me that are going on to be regular productive members of society and do good things. One of them's in the Coast Guard. Kind of failed out of school, but he's doing really well now. When I see those people do really well and And that's kind of cool for me. I'm not a parent yet. My wife and I are working on that stuff. We have a dog. So, you know, if you've seen my Facebook page, all my wife posts are pictures of our French Bulldog. And I'm shocked he's not down here. He must be upstairs sleeping. It's all the French Bulldogs do is sleep. You know, we obviously don't have kids of our own. So, you know, we do our best to, and I've learned this from multiple video coordinators in the business, to take care of the kids that take care of me, the students that work for me. We had them over the house last season before the season started. I've got a big grill in my backyard. It's one of those like festival size grills with 8 burners, because it was just as cheap to buy that from Sam's Club as it was to buy a regular grill. So we said, we're going to get the monster grill. It's really helpful for family parties too. But, you know, we grilled out chicken and corn on the cob and all sorts of stuff. So, you know, oh, sorry, my wife just texted me what she wants for dinner. But when I started this job too, I can't leave her out of this. I don't know how I have. She was just somebody that, you know, she's one of my friends from high school. It's his sister. So when I started this job, I didn't understand the DSLR thing quite. And she's got kind of the same degree in electronic media. And we ended up, of all places, and I love this is being recorded. I'll make Joe go back and watch this because we'll laugh about it. We met at a casino. Her brother and another one of my friends, we were all going to the casino just down the road in Indiana. And we were sitting there because her brother and one of our other buddies were playing craps. I don't know how to play craps. I had played a couple slots, a little bit of blackjack. We were sitting there waiting on them to get done. And I was asking her about DSLR cameras. And, you know, I said, what do you think I should buy? She said Nikon. I was like, I might buy a Canon. I bought a Canon. We bought a Nikon last year. So, you know, we didn't know one another back then, but then, you know, one thing leads to another. And there are times where she hates this job. That should have been probably earlier advice that I gave. There's times where, she hates this job because I'm it. I'm the lone person that knows how Exos works at the University of Cincinnati, pretty much. So my phone buzzes off the hook, obviously this week and next week. It can't because we're doing some furlough stuff, but my phone will buzz 24/7, 365, doesn't matter. And it's really hard sometimes, and we have this conversation either every year or every other year at CSBA of work-life balance and how do you, my brother used to, I don't know if he will go back, but he does some food service stuff for the Cincinnati Reds, where he works in the suites. So he works in professional baseball. I work in college football. Our schedules don't match up. He's got a 1-year-old. We're going to a birthday party tomorrow for his 1-year-old. I don't get to spend a lot of time with him just because our schedules don't match up. I don't see my parents as much because the scheduling, it sucks. But, and I think that was one of your other questions, Jimmy, just getting that balance is the most difficult part for me, other than the actual on-the-job training the students away from the job, making sure that you're taking care of everything at home. And everybody on this call has probably had that issue. It's just difficult. And there's 98% of the time my wife's cool with the job. She comes down with our camera and takes pictures on the sidelines during games. She's better at like newborn baby photo shoots and stuff like that. She's done like 3-year-old photo shoots. She's good at that. But she likes the challenge of football. And enjoys coming to football games, and our coaching staff does a really good job with the wives. So that's really cool. But if I don't mention her, it won't end well for me. But getting surrounded by people that know and understand the job, and then getting to see those students go out into the real world and make something of themselves. It's kind of like a proud parent moment, but not quite because they're not my own kids. I guess, hopefully hopefully in 20 or 30 years, I'll have my own kids and I'll be able to tell you what a proud parent moment is. But for right now, I guess the closest I've got are the surrogate students that work for me, and to see them go out, like I said, there's only a couple that have gone into our line of work kind of, but those that haven't still are doing really well. And I think whether or not I had anything to do with that, the best feeling is when, you know, I still have a text thread with a couple of them, and they'll, you know, we talk about random stuff, you know, to have those kind of connections, it's just awesome. So that's on the job, off the job, kind of the things that I think is the best. But I mean, if you've never gone to Hawaii and visited Dory, you know, and I love Dory's Facebook post about people can't drive. They can't drive here either, but it's not good in Hawaii.
So again, I wish I had a little bit more time for questions and whatnot, but we're running up right to the minute. We're going to actually talk a little bit about the sports staff coming back into the facility. So it is a really important conversation. But, but I just want to thank you for all your contributions to the industry so far, and there's many more to come. We'll be talking to you very soon. Like I said, there was, 5-10 more topics that we could talk about, but we'll bring you back. And where can they contact you before we let everybody go and we go in this other meeting?
My email address is, well, that's my personal email address. It's tagged on my blog, but it's just my first name dot my last name at uc.edu. I'm on Facebook. If you send me a random Facebook request and like you're not friends with somebody in the video coordinating world, I might not accept it. But I mean, my email, it just, however people contact me, sometimes, obviously, in the next couple weeks, I can't exactly get back to you, but, I'm always willing to help as much as I can. But there's sometimes where I have to tell people like, look, I'd love to hire a GA this year, but it's just not going to happen. But in the future, maybe I can help you out, or maybe I can connect you to somebody else. And if I can do that, I can connect you with Scott Eilert. I can connect you to Dory. You know what I mean? And I think if we have that ability to connect other people to other people that can help them, then we've done at least a halfway decent job as video people to help connect other people.
Great. Okay. So thank you to everybody that attended the video portion of this call, but appreciate everything, Adam. Stay safe, you and your families. Unfortunately, I got to kick everybody else off. Scott, if you want the last word, you have 60 seconds before we have to get started on the other thing. So, no, good, great.
Adam, thank you very much. Take care. Bye.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Adam. We'll be in touch.